It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I'm looking at Michigan, and look, in the fall, we were in Michigan for our Working Class Heroes radio tour, and you could sense that there was something happening there. The more people we talked to, from the Uber driver to the waitress at the diner to the people working in the hotels, to the people at the events we held, you could sense that there was something going on, that people were tired of what they were being shoveled and they were ready for some change. And you saw a massive sweep of Democratic candidates taking back the House, the Senate, and continuing to hold on to the governor's mansion and the attorney general. I mean, a complete blue wave. And now it's paying off because they're moving legislation. In fact, just the other day, the Senate moved to repeal their No Rights at Work bill. This, a huge thing, could be the first state in 60 years when Gretchen Whitmer puts her name on this, to turn back the rights at work stuff. And here to share some thoughts on how important this is, if nothing more than the messaging coming out of it, I've asked my good friend Andy Levin to come talk with us, former Michigan congressman and distinguished senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. Andy, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, it's great to talk to you as ever.
So huge news coming out of Michigan. In fact, when the Democrats took power, I was saying, everybody watch Michigan, Democrats, for how you should run the steamroller when you get the keys.
Well, my brother, it wasn't a sure thing, and it still, there's still a long way to go, but I have been so impressed by how Gretchen Whitmer and the new leadership of the legislature, Winnie Brinks in the Senate, Joe Tate in the Speaker of the House, what they've been able to do. They've been steady, and they're just knocking off their bills one after another. We got rid of right to freeload, and Whitmer, it's all just for Whitmer to sign it. And we're going to restore prevailing wage. We're going to do a whole lot more to, restore workers' rights in this state. They'll get into healthcare. I hope they get into staffing. I mean, I hope they get into a lot of things that workers of all kinds need, health and safety stuff. I mean, look, the Republicans have controlled the bulk or all of Michigan state government for my entire adult lifetime, 40 years. And what people say 40 years, but actually it was only for a minute 40 years ago when Democrats got control because a couple of legislators were recalled. It was super easy to recall people then.
Yeah.
The Republicans now made it a lot harder to recall people. So now they're stuck with this Democratic. It's a slim majority in both the state House of Representatives and the state Senate, as you know, Rick, but it's there, and they're kind of soberly going about their business, knocking off one item after another. We're going to have sensible gun reform. We're going to have expansion of civil rights, so it's all coming.
But this is what I've been saying for the longest time. When Virginia did this a couple of years ago, I'm going, you've got to move something. You've got to make it appear that you're making people's lives better. You've got to move policy that is going to give people the opportunity to have better lives and do something. Don't just sit there, do something. And this is what I'm seeing out of your government there. And this is a good thing in my view.
You're so right. I just feel like it was astounding. You're in Congress, right? The Republican Party in Congress, really, there's nothing that they promote that helps the working class person, whether it's taxes, regulatory policy, Lord knows about, workforce rules, overtime, sick pay, everything, vacations. They don't help you in any damn way. And yet, the Democrats do such a poor job of getting stuff done and also explaining what they're doing that the average working person isn't at all clear which party is taking care of their business. That is pathetic. And Michigan needs right now Michigan needs to show the way of how you can pass a bunch of legislation that actually makes people's lives better. You know what, Rick? When the previous Republican governor Snyder got in there, he started taxing people's pensions, and we have repealed that now. So there's nothing more straight up than that.
Yeah, no.
To tax the really rich people and the corporations, or are you going to tax like some working stiff who now that they have their little pension and you're taxing it? Come on. So that's we need to do a bunch of that, and then they need to make very clear who did it and take credit for it and explain it to people. You know how busy people are in their lives. You know how many people work at 2 or 3 jobs, or if they've only got one, they're taking care of their parents, they're taking care of their kids, whatever. And so, we need to really share the good news with people in a way that it reaches them.
No, we need to go back and undo the damage of the past. And I've been saying all week that, bipartisanship always seems to bite working people in the behind. So I'm not a huge proponent of bipartisanship. I look at all this deregulation, these bank collapses that are happening, because back in 2018 they decided, hey, let's work in a bipartisan fashion and deregulate a portion of this. And now it's biting us in the behind. This is a moment where we need people who are going to stand up and fight for working people, and not, we can do half measures.
My brother, Elizabeth Warren, is telling the truth right now about these banks. I mean, look, just think about this for a second. This bank in Silicon Valley goes under, and hey, there's insurance, right? Up to $250,000, the FDIC. For somebody like you or me, it's like, okay, I never had $250,000 in a bank. Can you imagine? That's cool. They've got that insurance. Okay, these Silicon Valley bigs have millions in there, right? 10, 20 million. And within minutes, the federal government's coming in and saying, we're protecting all of that. Whoa. I mean, can you imagine if they did that in any, like, what about all the student debt hanging out there? You don't see the whole world coming and say, whoa, we're going to wipe out all that debt. We can't even get 10, 20,000 of it relieved. Now they're going to protect millions. So, there's a place for bipartisanship. There's a place for it. But a lot of the bipartisan stuff that Democrats, don't just think about Biden time. Go back to Carter and Clinton. I mean, under Carter, we deregulated trucking, right? And airline.
Yep.
That was a big mistake for the working people and for passengers, right? So
you're making my argument, Andy.
Well, you and I sometimes see things a little bit the same way.
You go to the Carter years. You got all of the telecom bill in '96. You got the food stamp, the work thing, the food stamp thing. You got a lot of the bad Gingrich Clinton stuff that was horrible for working people.
Yep. Yeah. Bill Clinton and welfare as we know it. Okay. I mean, a lot of a lot of times common sense gets thrown out the window in a rush to do something bipartisan. And I think the kind of bipartisanship I like is when Democrats get sizable majorities in both houses and actually run things that are good for working people, like creating Social Security, creating Medicare, creating Medicaid, passing the Fair Labor Standards Act, the National Labor Relations Act. Really, and if some Republicans want to get on board, that's fine. God bless them. And I'll give them credit for it, but in truth, most of what we see as the scaffolding of justice in this country in terms of our federal laws were passed in the 30s and the 60s by overwhelming Democratic majorities in both houses under FDR and LBJ. Right. And that's just the truth of it.
No, that's the truth of it. But here's the thing, and this is where I keep coming back to, we should be fighting to do this again today, because right now, this as well as anyone, you've got a governor in Arkansas who just signed a bill to loosen child labor laws. You look at what's going on out in Iowa, they're attempting to just eviscerate child labor laws. There is a movement across this country to get kids back to work, because, Andy, we need cheap labor.
Okay, right. I was a paper boy, the Daily Tribune.
So was I.
I worked at Java Junction as a busboy, right? We worked from when we were kids.
I didn't work on the kill floor of the meat processing plant, though.
I mean, there's a place for it. It was appropriate for me to be a paper boy and a busboy and so forth, and on, the jobs I did from. But this thing, just take Arkansas, right? I mean, the idea of saying that parents and schools don't need to know and weigh in when children are working in any of these jobs when they're 14, 15 years old. It's shameful. I mean, what are they they're streamlining, they're getting rid of red tape, they're making things more efficient. I don't want it to be more efficient for some 14-year-old to be able to end up in a meat packing plant with nobody knowing about it. That is not a safe thing, or running some, heavy equipment. I mean, that, we're really talk about getting back to the days of the robber barons.
No, exactly. And this is where I come to you as someone served in Congress a very long time. You're at the front of the messaging. How come Democrats aren't running this message? Going, look, we're the party that ended child labor. We're the ones who defend children and child labor. Where you've now got all I hear from Republicans is all about trans kids. That's all they're concerned about. But we'll put them on the kill floor in Iowa and give a liability shield to the corporations as long as they're paired up with the school district. It's crazy, the messaging losses here.
You are so right. Wow. The way you put it is really something, Rick. The idea that it's pro-family to, yell at who goes in what bathroom or something, and then let kids go run huge saws and meat cutting machines and all this kind of stuff. I mean, exposés. I'll tell you a little bit of why I think a couple reasons why I think Democrats sometimes aren't better about this. Number one, they are sometimes running the store when it happens. I mean, look, Governor Whitmer's great, right? She's Democratic governor. This recent New York Times expose, first sentence was Grand Rapids, Michigan, right? I'm not saying Whitmer's personally responsible, but people need to not get defensive and say, this is horrible. We're not accepting this and we're stepping up. And the second reason is just how much damn money there is in politics. You got to follow the money in every case, right? And people who take corporate money, and they may take money from any one of these kind of big industries, whether it's textiles, meat packing, manufacturing, whatever it is, there may be a big employer in their district. I mean, heck, you had a Hyundai big supplier having a lot of child labor, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that is such a good point. They're yelling about trans kids while they're letting kids get maimed at work, when they're 14, 15 years old. That is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I was just reading an article yesterday, the Wall Street Journal, that the apparel companies are worried that they don't know what they're going to do without China, because they don't know what they're going to do about the cheap labor. And I'm like, the perfect thing. They're laying the groundwork right now. We're just going to bring it back here so we can have kids work in the sweatshops. But they'll be okay with that. Just as long as they're not wearing the dresses, they'll be fine.
Oh, my God. This idea of make it in America and bring the jobs back, I'm so, I've been for it. And to be honest, I look at some of the people trying to jump to the front of the cheering line who voted for every damn trade agreement that sent all these jobs away in the first place.
Yep.
And now they're saying, make it in America. I'm like, oh, okay, well, as long as you're saying that now, I guess. But, you are so right that it doesn't mean that much to make it in America if we're going to bring back child labor. I mean, that is just beyond the pale. So the Democrats should be beating this drum very loudly. And you're right on about that.
And this is where we need to get into places like Michigan. We need to go back into places like Iowa, get into Wisconsin and Ohio, into Pennsylvania, into these former manufacturing states and say, look, we're gonna do what Trump said he was going to do. But we're actually going to do it instead of just talk about it. And this is what I give Biden credit for. Biden doesn't speak very well. You got to admit that, but he's walking the walk. So I don't care if he can talk the talk. As long as we're bringing jobs back, we're reshoring manufacturing, we're shoring up the future. I think he's doing a fabulous job.
Well, I agree with you. I think the pandemic really smacked people in the face. I mean, it's a national security problem if you don't make any dang steel in your country and you need to make, weapons, even though I think we could cut our defense budget. But obviously we need to make, tanks and jets and munitions and so forth. But it's also, we realized, a national security issue. If you have a huge pandemic and you don't have anything, that you don't make any of it here. You don't make the tubes, the syringes, the swabs, the masks, nothing. I mean, and, we have just got to start manufacturing things on a large scale again. And all the excuses that they made from the Reagan era until yesterday. Oh, it's the UAW's fault. It's, we priced ourselves out of the market, too many unions. Well, listen, Germany is way more unionized than America, and the labor costs are higher, and they don't have 5 or 10% more of their GDP for manufacturing. They have twice as much of their GDP, twice as much for manufacturing as we do. So don't give me all these excuses. We can make things here again with good union labor where people make a middle-class living and can retire with dignity. And otherwise, there's, what's the point in doing it if we're just going to have sweatshops?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Last thing I wanted to ask you about, I just saw that crude oil prices are down 8%, down to $65 a barrel. It's the lowest it's been since 2021. And I'm going, at $65 a barrel, shouldn't prices be coming down? How come prices aren't coming down?
Wow. I try to get gas at Costco because it's, when I go there, because it's the cheapest. And even there, it's like $3.30 something there and $3.60 something at the regular. I mean, it's outrageous. The reasons are, I think, simple. One is just greed.
Yep.
I mean, you just have to line up the profits that these oil companies are making with the prices. And they are loving this, and they hide behind the magic hand, the invisible hand, nonsense. They have been just making money hand over fist. And who's most vulnerable to this? I mean, a wealthy person may have a car that uses a lot of gas or something, and may whatever. But the average working person spends a way higher percentage to fill than the rich person, just to fill their pickup truck or little sedan to get to work and back every day. They don't have a choice. They've got to do it to get to work. And so, I think we really have to both go after this, these obscene profits, and move more aggressively to diversify the energy system.
And not just on that front, Andy. I mean, on everything. The inflation has just gotten out of hand, and I argue most of it has to do with the fact that we've got greedy CEOs and opportunist corporations are going, hey, we can fleece American consumers because, hey, they've got to eat eggs and pie crust and all the other stuff that we've tripled and quadrupled the price of to line our pockets. And if you look at their profits margins and their profit and their calls, they're all admitting it.
Exactly. When they talk to their investors, they say this is the greatest time. And then they try to run a different line when they talk, to Congress or something. But if one of these huge supermarket chains or meat suppliers or whatever, all these companies are making huge profits. If they said, look, we decided to make 10% less profit because of all this trouble, and then you all have to pay a little more. Okay, that seems fair. They got to make some profit, right? But the idea that they're making more profit and much more profit that's just gross. I mean, that is inappropriate. Yep. It's unacceptable. I think it's un-American.
Where's this generation's Harry Truman? When do we start breaking these people up? Where's Teddy Roosevelt when we need him?
Yeah.
That's right my thought. Andy, I appreciate the time, though. Always great talk with you. I hope you'll come back. I know you're doing a lot of great work at the Center for American Progress there as one of the distinguished senior fellows. I hope you come back and share some thoughts on what you're working on there. And I know you got a bunch of other things going on. So by all means, please come back and share with us.
Will do. Thanks, Rick. Thanks so much. Take care.
Good stuff. Our good friend, former Michigan Representative Andy Levin. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, Rick at thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania To the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Calling all builders. Your country is calling you. Tackling climate change is the job of our lifetime. It's time to build back better. Let's get to work.
So this is going to be fun. Evidently, there's going to be a mega campus in D.C. Or what are they calling this? It's Patriots Row. That's what it's going to be. Evidently, this Conservative Partnership Institute, co-founded by former South Carolina Senator Jim DeMint. I guess Mark Meadows is part of it. You know, some of the old past need jobs. So they prop up these think tanks or these institutes, and then they throw a bunch of money at them, and they come up with bad ideas and take advantage of their contacts. But they've evidently buying up a bunch of properties near the Capitol. And this Washington Post article is pointing out that they've bought, I guess, 4 more properties that they have butted up against 3 more. They're taking over like a whole block, like $41 million shopping spree, they've said. To buy up these properties, which isn't a big deal. I mean, in D.C., money goes flying around all the time, but it is interesting that people who call it the swamp, who hate D.C., are buying it up. But there's evidently going to be one of the places for people like Marjorie Three Names and them to have their, I don't know, whatever they do, their runaways or, their insurrection headquarters or whatever. Some interesting news. George Santos, the representative from New York, the guy who has the very creative resume. Some would say he's lied out of every orifice. In fact, as my grandfather would say, he would lie when the truth would be better. He has announced that he's going to run. He's filed a statement of candidacy for 2024. That ought to be interesting to see how that plays out. Also, here in my state of Pennsylvania, and this will be fun. The state senator who ran for governor and got the worst thrashing in the history of gubernatorial politics in this state, Doug Mastriano, is evidently there's a push to make him run against Bob Casey for Senate next year. They're claiming he's the only one who stands a chance to defeat Bob Casey in 2024. It's one of these things where I'm going, I don't know. I know his faithful because there are still Doug Mastriano for governor signs in people's yards around my neighborhood, which I find really kind of funny. You want to talk about poor losers? Because lost really. It's like if you were rooting for a football team that lost like 99-0, and then complained about a ref's call in the fourth quarter, and believe that cost you the game. This is kind of that. But they believe he's going to be the guy, and I'm hoping he is. Because it would be good to hold on to another Senate seat in 2024, and it would be good to see another thrashing. Because I got to tell you, there was something healing about seeing him getting beat so badly in this state, to kind of let me know that maybe Pennsylvania isn't as off its rocker as as I thought it might be. So good on you, my friends in PA. And you're might have another chance in 2024 to send Doug Mastriano back to back to the woodshed. Let's go with that. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back.
I've been driving buses for 5 years, and my day-to-day routine is I wake up a little earlier than most people. I get on a bus, I go out, I pick up some students and make sure they get to school nice and safe. Here in Fairbanks, Alaska, that can be a challenge because of the winter weather and the icy roads. But I love the job. So the Teamsters are great. They provide us a lot of protections. They've always taken care of their people, made sure that our jobs were secure. We didn't have to worry about whether or not we'd have a job from day to day.
And that's amazing because before we'd be working 4, 6, 8 hours a day and only earning minimum wage. Was real difficult to make a living. And then the Teamsters pushed a lot so we make something we can live off of and not have to have a second job. What absolutely gives me peace of mind, the union membership allows me to focus on this job without having to worry about whether or not my family is going to be taken care of. I'm Andrew Case, and I'm proud to be Teamsters Local 959.
Before we close the program, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and to share a little bit about why we do what we do. At the Rick Smith Show, we believe that media today is almost entirely controlled by corporate greed. So we have now 24-hour news channels. But instead of 24 hours of news, what we get is 1 hour repeated 24 times, and with tons of commercials creating obscene amounts of profits. Information once presented as a public service has now become a private commodity. So when lies make money, lies are what we get. We get a corporate-controlled rage machine feeding us anger and hate, trying to convince us that our problems are right, left, or red, blue, when they are and always have been up, down, the wealthiest 1% versus the rest of us. Our goal is to be an alternative to that machine, not as a news show with a fancy journalist out front, but as a talk show run by a union truck driver and a team of working-class heroes just like you. Everything we do, both what we get right and what we get wrong, is dedicated to advancing the interests of America's working families. No corporate ad buys, no think tanks, no focus groups, no talking points. We are media by working people, for working people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.